The plane was diving steeply down. The ground was rushing up at them. Clyde Peters' hands were on white-fisted knuckles, white-knuckled fists on the steering yoke. And behind him, 3 sobbing, screaming, crying, vomiting commandos as the clouds just barely stayed open enough for the plane to come down. And only about 500 feet above the ground, Clyde was able to level off and then come in and touch down perfectly gently on that airstrip. The most beautiful landing he'd ever had. Whoop, and he touched down. And he brought the plane to a stop, and he turned and looked at the men back there, and they were all sitting, clutching each other. He said, well, gentlemen, we've touched down. This isn't Grand Pajonal where you wanted to go, but we'll just wait here until the clouds clear, and then I can take you back up again if you still need to go looking for those terrorists in the jungle. And the leader said, we will never fly again! And they jumped out of the plane and kissed the ground and ran into the village to find the nearest bar to get drunk. So Clyde didn't have to take them out to Grand Pajonal, where they might end up shooting at the terrorists and end up accidentally shooting the villagers. And so his prayer was answered. Well, Clyde still had a lot to learn about his judgmental attitude. Remember, we've been already saying in previous stories, Clyde could be kind of like, I don't know. He was kind of rude. He was kind of, maybe not rude on the outside all the time, but he was rude on the inside. Like, he would think things about people and he's like, I don't think they're worth my time. I don't think that person's going to ever listen about God anyways. That person's no good. And he had to learn how to think differently. Here's one of the ways that God managed to change Clyde Peters and how Clyde Peters behaved against other people. There were, in some of the villages now in the jungle, after Clyde had been working there for about 6 months, who started getting worried. See, these villages, many of them were ruled by, what do you think? Let's see. They were villages that didn't have really any knowledge about God, and they kind of believed in evil spirits. So who would tend to have power in those kind of villages? Raise your hand if you want to answer. Who would have power? The witch doctors, exactly right. You know, in most cultures in the world, if people don't know about God and they believe in spirits or animism or the devils, there's usually then people who step up and say, yes, and I'm in control of those spirits, or I can talk to them, so you have to listen to me. Well, these witch doctors started telling people in some of these villages, you don't want to listen to the white people, you don't want to listen to those gringos, you don't want to listen to those pistacos, those evil white spirits, because you know what they do? They told them, if you ever get in if you're in that plane that they fly around in, that's evil magic. You get in that plane, and then they control you, and they're going to take you back to their special houses, and you know what they do there? They put you in a big pot, and they burn you and boil you inside that pot until you melt into grease, and they use that to make their engines work. That's how they keep their engines running. They boil you up. I don't know, that's the story they gave, but it scared a lot of the natives. And so then they were now worried to ask for help or to go get help from the Seventh-day Adventist missionaries. Well, a young boy named Quincy Quiddy. Say it with me. Quincy Quiddy. Quincy Quiddy. Yeah, he's got a lot of letter Q's in his name. He was 12 years old, and he and his father were out by one of those jungle villages way out there, chopping down trees, and his dad had a tree coming down. He forgot to warn Quincy Quiddy which direction it was going to fall, and the tree fell. One of its branches caught Quincy Quiddy as it was coming down, and it had a branch pointing down, and it went. Can I get a volunteer? Come on up here. The branch came down from behind Quincy Quiddy, and the branch was broken off and sharp, and it went into his back and punctured into his lung from the back, and then it knocked him to the ground, pinning him to the ground. It didn't go through him, but it knocked him right to the ground. Think of him. He had this branch sticking out of his back. His dad chopped the branch off and carried Quincy Quiddy home, and then they tried to decide what to do. Do we go to the witch doctor to get his healing? You know what he does for healing? He mixes tobacco juice that he chews up and spits into a pot, and he mixes that with alcohol, and he pours it in the wounds. And so far, everybody that he's treated with that mixture dies. So we're not going to want to go to him. But then on the other hand, if we go to Navati, which is the closest Seventh-day Adventist mission station, which is 3 days hike away, what if they take our boy and boil him down into grease? We don't know what to do. But the Holy Spirit worked on their hearts, and they decided, you know what, we're going to do this. Everybody else would say, go to the witch doctor in our village, but we're going to go. And so they took him for 3 days through the jungle. And we talked about how you've got an open wound in the jungle. What happens? What grows inside of it? What do you start getting? Maggots. The flies find it, and then they lay their eggs, and they hatch, and they make maggots. And so by the time they got to Navati mission station, that wound, which still had the stick sticking out of it, now had maggots crawling out of it as well. And the boy had lost a lot of blood. Somehow he was still awake, somehow he was still able to breathe, but he was very pale, and he looked and smelled awful. The missionary at Navati station said, I can't take care of this. I'm not even a nurse. I'm just a missionary. I don't have medical training. This is above my pay grade. So he called on the radio. Clyde flew in, and when Clyde saw Quincy Quiddy, the first thing he thought was, this is a waste of time. This boy's dead. And not only that, even if he's not dead yet, he looks awful. He's wearing this dirty kushma. Oh, a kushma. Kushma was the name for the robes that they would wear. And it's really interesting, a little interesting fact. When you got old enough to wear a kushma, you were given a kushma. If you were a boy, your kushma had vertical lines on it. So all the decorations went up and down. And if you were a girl, then yours were horizontal across. That's just how they did it in that part of the world. He had his dirty, dirty kushma. It was the only one he owned. And it was filthy and then covered in blood. And he smelled like a dead animal. Clyde thought, there's no way he's going to even make it. But there were the parents, and they were nervously asking for help. They kept waiting to see if somebody was going to grab them and turn them into grease. Nobody had yet. And now Clyde said, I need to take your boy and put him in my white plane. Oh, no. Put him in the white plane. The mother started sobbing. Oh, no. The father said, we need to do it. And the mother, no. Clyde couldn't speak their language, but he could tell that she was very frightened. But he got the boy into the plane. He got him laying down, kind of propped up on one side, so the branch was sticking out to the side. And the boy was scared too. He was looking at him with big wide eyes. So I thought, this boy just looks like a feral animal. I don't even know why we're wasting our time here. He's not going to make it. He closed the door to the plane. He got on the other side, took off. And as the plane engine roared to take off, the boy just started screaming. And he screamed for the entire 30-minute flight from Navati over to Pucallpa, which is where the hospital was. Excuse me, to Yurinacocha. He had to stop at Yurinacocha first. So as he was flying to Yurinacocha, the boy screamed the whole way, hanging on to Clyde's leg with one hand. So I thought, this kid's like an animal. I don't know what we're going to do with him. They landed at Yurinacocha, which is where his family was, and Clyde got out of the plane, and he quickly went to get some other supplies he was going to need to try to stabilize the boy a bit more before flying over to Pucallpa, where the hospital was. And when he got back, he saw someone else had gotten on the plane. It was his 4-year-old daughter, Linda. And Clyde thought, oh, no, not Linda. Linda was his youngest daughter, and she was friendly to everybody. She smiled at everybody. She tried to talk to everybody. She could speak Spanish, and she could speak a few words in the Campas language, and she would try to talk with anybody she met. And Clyde was like, oh, no, I hope she doesn't go over there and start talking to him. Or, no, I start touching him. He's so dirty. Oh, no, don't. And he got in, and there she was sitting next to him, and she was rubbing his side, and she was rubbing his face, and saying, ¿Cómo estás, señor? ¿Cómo estás? And the boy, who didn't speak Spanish, only spoke Campas, he was looking at her, and he was smiling. So I was like, well, okay, I guess she's being nice to him. That's okay, but come on, Linda, get out. Where I need to go. And he stabilized the boy a little bit more, packed some supplies around to keep him from bumping around, flew into Pucallpa. And when he got there, the doctor said, I can't believe he's still alive. This boy has already survived more things than I can imagine anyone surviving. He's has almost no blood left in him. Look how pale he is. I can't believe he's even awake. The doctor took him to the operating room. He pulled the stick out. He cleaned out the maggots as much as he could, but the hole was already now so old and so dirty and so infected that he couldn't stitch it closed. If you stitch closed a wound that's infected, you're just trapping the infection inside the wound. So the doctor told Clyde, listen, he's going to have to just heal with the wound open. We'll put bandages over the surface, but his body's just going to have to repair it from the inside out. That's going to take probably a month. So if you send him back to his parents, guaranteed that's just going to end up, he's just going to die from infection. He needs to be staying with somebody who can give him antibiotics every day, take care of the wound every day, and watch over him. So he needs to go back to your house. Oh, no. I don't want this kid staying in my house. I don't want to be doing, this is just, he's still so disgustingly sick and gross. He stinks. I put him in the plane, flew him back. He got there and he left the boy in the plane. He went to the house. Eleanor, that boy that I was transporting, yeah, so here's what happened. Here's what we need to do, and he's probably going to have to stay here for a month. Can you make a bed for him out like in one of the airport hangars so we can keep him out there? Because I tell you, he's really filthy and dirty. So I said, no, of course not. He's going to come and sleep inside our house. In fact, we'll give him one of the kids' beds. What? Yes, and, Linda, go run and get the good sheets. We'll put them on the bed. No, Eleanor, you don't need to do that. This boy has slept on just a dirt floor all of his life. You could just put him on the bare mattress. We don't need to get the sheets dirty. Eleanor looked at him, and little Linda looked at him. And Linda said, Daddy, we're going to treat him the way Jesus treats us. Oh, Clyde felt pretty ashamed. He felt the heat rushing to his face. He had to swallow a big ball in his throat. Okay, I guess you taught me a lesson. They got him inside. They cleaned him up. They took that dirty old kushma off. It had probably never been washed, or at least hadn't been washed in a long time. And one of the kids ran off to wash it. Linda and Eleanor gave him a bath, carefully doing it so they wouldn't get any water in the wound. Then they gave him a comb and a mirror, and they showed him how to use it. He'd never seen a comb, and he'd never seen his own face other than the reflection of the water before. And from that day on, Quincy Query would comb his hair probably 200 times a day. He'd just walk around, he'd pull out his little mirror. They took him into the kitchen. They gave him a cold drink. He'd never had a cold drink before. There's no ice in the jungle. So they gave him a beverage with ice cubes in it, and he didn't know what it was. And when he tipped it up and the ice cube touched his mouth, he started yelling because it tasted hot to him. It was so cold. He'd never had anything cold like that before. He thought it was burning him. He got used to it, though. He soon learned to love ice cubes. Clyde had to teach him how to use a toilet. They had a flush toilet in their house. He'd never seen one of those before. Clyde had to show him, this is the button that you push, this is how it works. And the boy loved to go to the bathroom and just flush the toilet and watch the water go down. Stayed there for a month. And Clyde kept thinking, I can't believe that we're able to make these kinds of changes on this boy. And one of the big changes that Clyde saw was that from the very first night that Quincy Query could be out of bed and walking on his own. When they knelt for family worship to pray, Quincy Query got out of his little chair and he knelt down and he prayed. He looked at everybody. They had their eyes closed. He closed his eyes as well. And Clyde thought to himself, oh God, I'm so sorry. I totally misjudged what can happen when you work on somebody's heart. I was just looking at the outside. 30 days passed by and Quincy Query's wound had healed up. He was a happy boy. He had good rosy cheeks again. He had energy. He liked to go around and play with the kids. And then one day a translator came from one of the other villages, a native, and he could speak the boy's language. And so Clyde said, tell the boy that we're going to be taking him home by the airplane soon back to his family. He'll probably be happy about that. The translator went over and explained to him, and Clyde watched the boy's face go from... Clyde thought, uh-oh, why is he sad? He's going to get to see his parents again. But just a few minutes later, while Clyde's back was turned, Quincy Query disappeared. You couldn't find him anywhere. They looked around the house, looked around the airstrip, the airplane hangars. They couldn't find him anywhere. Clyde thought, oh no. He ran off in the jungle. I'm responsible for this boy. Now what are his parents going to think? They're going to think that I boiled him down into grease. That's what they're going to think if I can bring the boy back to him. What am I going to do? And he started walking around, calling out, Quincy Query! Quincy Query! Quincy Query, are you out there anywhere? And then he heard a noise coming from inside the jungle. And here came Quincy Query and had a grin on his face again. And he had something wrapped up in the fold of his kushma. And he walked up to him. He smiled, he said, and he did that until the whole family had gathered around. And then he opened up the fold of his kushma, and inside was a live bird. It was a beautiful bird, an extremely beautiful bird that lives in that part of the world. The people there call it the siete colores. It's a 7-colored tanager. 7-colored tanager, very beautiful, very, very bright, and Clyde thought, how did he catch that bird? Did he sneak up on it? Well, how did he do it? And Clyde tried to ask him, how to explain how he did it. And he couldn't speak his language, of course, but the boy showed him. The only belonging that the boy had beside his dirty kushma was a sling that he carried around his neck. Kind of like the slings that they use in Israel, like what David would have used. And he showed him that he would make a mud ball of just the right consistency, of soft mud. He could put it in there, and then when a bird would fly by, he could hit it with a mud ball, and the mud ball would kind of splatter on the bird's wings, and it couldn't fly. It would drop to the ground, but it wouldn't kill it. And that's how he caught it. And he gave it as a gift to the family, the siete colores for them. And then Clyde knew that what he was doing, he wasn't sad to go home. He was sad to leave them, and he wanted to give them a gift to show them how much he appreciated them. They got on the plane to fly back home, and now the boy climbed up, sat in the co-pilot seat. He put on the seatbelt when they showed him to, and he was totally not afraid anymore. Plane took off, vroom, and he was just looking out the window. And all the way back, in that short flight back to his village, he was saying, Kametsa! 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 Which means what? Wonderful! This is so cool! They landed in Navati, where the mission station was that the parents had hiked 3 days to bring him there. And there were the parents. They had been waiting for him to come back. And during that time that they had spent a month there at Navati waiting for him to come back, they'd been learning about Jesus from the missionaries there. And when the plane landed and Kunchikwiri jumped out of the plane, the mother began crying again, but this time for joy. Not only had they not turned her boy into engine grease, but now he was a totally different looking boy. He had combed hair, really combed hair, and he had on a clean kushma, and he came running up to them, and Clyde noticed that he talked nonstop for like 30 minutes. He must have been telling them every detail of everything that had happened. Clyde went into the airstrip hangar office to be able to get things figured out for another flight and to check on the radio. When he came back out, there was something wrong with the plane. Well, not wrong with the plane, but there was something unusual around the plane. There was a mountain of yucca. Yucca is a cassava. It's a root. It looks like a big, weird-shaped potato-ish thing, and they use this as a food. They boil it and eat it. But the people, the parents, had been so grateful as they'd been getting updates that their son was going to be coming back to them, and they'd been so grateful. They had arranged with all their village, with all the other people in their village, to bring yucca, and they had a mountain of yucca now piled up around the airplane as a gift to Clyde. Clyde couldn't fit 1/3 of that yucca in his plane. He told them, I'll take some, but please, you've got to take the rest of it for yourselves. And they were so grateful to him for what he had done for Kunchikwiri. Clyde, as he flew back home, he thought to himself, Lord, you taught me a big important lesson with Kunchikwiri. I need to be kind to all your children. I need to see them the way you see them and treat them the way that you treat me. All right, we have time for one last quick story. After Clyde had been there for 3 years, another pilot came to join them because now the word was getting out. More and more missionaries were coming and they needed more mission pilots. So Bob Seamount, who had been formerly a singer in the King's Heralds, he now came to join them as well. He was also a pilot. And because now finally there was a second pilot, Clyde could start doing something he'd been missing for years. Jumping out of planes. See, if you're the only pilot in the area and you jump out of the plane, you have a hard time getting the plane back. So Clyde said, Bob, I want you to do some flying for me so I can jump out of planes. And Bob said, you know what, I've got an idea, Clyde. Here's the thing. We've been getting many converts from the natives, and they're excited about everything we teach them from the Bible, but there's one thing they always have a hard time wrapping their mind around. How can Jesus come back in the clouds? How can Jesus come back in the clouds? People don't go up in the sky. So what if we're going to be having our first Seventh-day Adventist native campus camp meeting coming up in about a month? And what if we have you jump over the camp meeting and float down, and we'll tell the people, look, this is what it'll be like to see Jesus come in the clouds. Clyde loved that idea. And they got things all ready. He did a couple practice jumps without the natives seeing him, and then they got ready. And the day of the camp meeting, the biggest meeting of the camp meeting, right before the baptism, Bob flew over, and Clyde jumped out of the plane. And all the Campus Indians looked up and went, ah! Because they thought Clyde was going to fall all the way down and go splat on the ground. But then when the parachute opened and they saw him start floating downwards, they all started leaping and laughing, and the pastors told them, this is how excited it's going to be, even more exciting when Jesus comes in the clouds. And they were so happy, and they really understood it at that point. Word got out that Clyde was doing this, and he received a message from the mayor of the jungle city of Yurimaguas. The mayor of Yurimaguas, this was a pretty big jungle city, it had about 50,000 people in it. And it had been in existence for 100 years. They were going to be celebrating their existence, their centennial anniversary, meaning that they'd had the city founded for 100 years. So they sent a message to Clyde. The mayor said, I think it would be really amazing if we had the Seventh-day Adventists doing something with our centennial, because you've had an impact on us in the few years you've been in our area. What if you did a parachute jump over our stadium? Now, you guys have seen like baseball stadiums, football stadiums? Their stadium was not the size of one of those. It was basically just walls made up of corrugated tin metal sheets and all nailed together all around, but still pretty big because they could fit inside of it on the bleachers they had set up. They could fit 40,000 people. And they would play soccer games there. The city had 50,000 people, 40,000 people would come to a soccer game. That's how much they loved soccer. And so they said, we're going to have a soccer game during our centennial, and it would be great if you could come as a surprise and jump over the soccer game. Clyde said, yeah, I'd love to do that. And Clyde even started thinking about it. How can I make it really special? And he had some ideas. So the day of the soccer game, Clyde and Bob flew over. Clyde jumped out, and the people all looked up and went, what? And then, as Clyde was diving, spread eagle, where you put your arms out like this to like control your body and be able to balance, he reached under himself. He had something strapped to his chest. And he took his hunting knife and he stabbed it. It was a 100-pound sack of flour. and this white streak of flowers started coming out behind him, and he started descending in circles, making these big spirals, and the people were like, what? And then he pulled his parachute, and his parachute, which was normally white, he had painted red on it as well, so now it was the color of the Peruvian flag. And the people went crazy because they loved their flag, and this was the most amazing thing. They'd never seen a parachute before, and all 40,000 people in the stadium were just like, woo! Now here's the thing, there wasn't just 40,000 people inside the stadium. That's something they could fit inside. For the centennial celebration, more people had come to visit from all the area around. There were 100,000 people in the city that day. 40,000 inside the stadium, 60,000 outside the stadium. And Clyde landed in the middle of that stadium. And every person inside the stadium left the bleachers and began rushing to the middle of the field. And there were some police there to try to keep control, and they surrounded Clyde, like, oh, look out, we don't want you to get crushed. But the police just got, poof, knocked right aside. 40,000 people coming at them out of the bleachers, woo! Because they all wanted to touch the guy who had jumped out with a Peruvian flag and come down from the sky. And then the 60,000 people outside the stadium got jealous. And they all started trying to get into the stadium at the same time. And the doors weren't made for more than a couple people at a time to get in on all the doors around. And they all just started pushing, and the stadium walls all went poof. And suddenly there were 100,000 people coming straight at Clyde from every direction at the same time. And none of them seemed to have any intention of stopping before they trampled Clyde into paste on the ground. And Clyde only had time to send up a prayer saying, Lord, I'm going to get crushed. And we'll find out tomorrow what happened.